Okay, we are back in the South Goshen yard, and this is my last run that I did after Thanksgiving, or I should say my most recent run. And this is, I'm loading up, my son and I are loading up, and it's going to Anderson, California. It was actually a really nice trip. I enjoyed it. So I wanted to preface this video. This is for entertainment purposes only. This is not an instructional video on how to load trailers. I'm not an expert by any means, and I don't claim to be. I don't claim to know everything there is about how to do things. So the way I do things may not be the way somebody else does it. But so my son and I are just going to load up this triple set that's going to go out to California. And I'm just going to do a voiceover on this one. I turn the audio off. I'm doing something. Excuse me. I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm using a GoPro chest mount, and it's a GoPro Hero 4 that I bought while I was deployed overseas. So it's several years old, and I've never really used it that much. But I think the video came out really, really well, and it's much better than the eyeglasses that I have. So with the chest mount, it's the motion seems to be a little bit better, whereas the eyeglasses, they of course move with your head, so it jerks around a lot. So I wanted to talk about reloads. I got several questions, and one of the viewers, Craig, he was asking a lot of information about reloads and how all that works. So I'm just going to talk about that and voice over, and everybody can just watch me loading these trailers, walking back and forth. Okay, so as far as reloads, how to source them, there's two different ways to source reloads. Get them off of the dispatch load boards, or they're self-sourced. So Horizon uses two different load boards. That's Central Dispatch and then a smaller load board called Super Dispatch. I don't yet have access to the Central Dispatch, but I do have access to the Super Dispatch, and that seems to have some of the same loads that Central Dispatch has, but it doesn't have everything. It probably has maybe 10 to 20% of the loads that Central Dispatch has. And if you pull a load off of Central Dispatch or Super Dispatch, you get 80% of that. You get 80% of that rate. So if it's paying $1,000, you'll get $800, and then Horizon gets the other $200. If you self-source your own, which I did that one time when I went out to South Carolina, you get 85% of that. So Horizon will take 15. And all the reloads have to go through Horizon because they create the BOL and other paperwork. And because you're running under their DOT number, then all the paperwork has to have their information on it. So I can't just work with, let's say my neighbor needs something moved, and I move it from one state to another, and then he pays me. No, I can't do that because I have to have a BOL that runs under Horizon's DOT number, because that's how I'm plated, and my IFTA, and everything has to be legal. So, but I usually I've the few times that I've done reloads, I just contacted them through email, and it just seems to be the easiest way to do it. But why take reloads? A lot of people talk about, it just helps pay for your return trip back to Indiana. And the problem that I have with a lot of these reloads is that they don't pay very much. Even if I fully load the truck with 3 cars, it just doesn't seem that each car or truck will pay that much. I was looking on the load board just earlier today, and I found a 2020 Ford F-250 pickup truck going from Dallas, Texas to Fort Wayne, Indiana. That would be great because I'm very close to Dallas. I can pick that up and I can take it up to Fort Wayne, which Fort Wayne is only about an hour from Goshen. But the problem is it was only paying 41 cents a mile. Well, even if I put 3 on there, that's at 41 cents a mile, that's $1.23. To me, it's not worth the hassle and the work. And just running one, I think they said the total cost was a little over $400 for that one. And well, yeah, it helps pay for fuel, but I'm assuming all the risk with that vehicle, loading it onto my vehicle. The weight of the vehicle, in F-350 is what, 7,000-8,000 pounds? 7,000-8,000 pounds is not, doesn't max out the trailer, but at 40 cents a mile, that's not quite the weight of 2 RVs that I put on my trailer, and I can be making a lot more than 40 cents a mile hauling a couple trailers. So most of the time I just drive back empty, simply because to me it's just the risk isn't worth the reward. But I'm not going to run my truck. I'm not going to carry a lot of the weight that these cars have for very little profit. I'd rather drive empty, and I get better fuel mileage going back empty, and I don't have the hassle of dealing with these brokers. And dealing with brokers is a hassle. That's just my personal opinion. So usually you see these cars are paying between 30 and 50 cents a mile. So, some are higher. I've seen some of these unicorn loads, as much as $1 a mile, but it's pretty rare. And then motorcycles are usually paying 20 cents a mile or so. So you have to, from a business standpoint, you have to look at, is it worth my time? Because if I can get back to Indiana faster being unloaded, it's, and I can get back to Indiana and I can pick up a load that pays me a lot more than this 30-40 cents a mile business. Well, getting back a day or two earlier can be well worth it. In one of my previous videos, I did a reload where I picked up 3 vehicles. It was an ATV and a car at one of the auction places, and it was a Chevy Suburban from one of the dealerships there in Los Angeles or Riverside or somewhere over there. And that took me all day to do those pickups. For the ATV, if I have a picture of, I have a picture somewhere, I'll throw it up if I can find it. But I went down in the morning, early in the morning, to pick up the ATV, and I had called them a day prior to make sure it was ready to go. And they had told me, yes, it was ready to go. And by the time I got there, they were still assembling it. So that's now cutting into my time. It cuts into my 14 hours. Cuts into my 14-hour duty day. So I ended up waiting there for a couple hours for them to get that done. And I was ready to walk away and say, just go to my next one and forget it. But they got it up, they got it finished, loaded it up, got it on the trailer, and then they looked at it and said, oh, we got the wrong tires on there. Had to take it off, wait for them to put the new tires on there, and it was such a hassle. And then I went over to this auction site, and that was even worse. With the auction site, they bring the vehicle out to you with a forklift, and then they'll put it on your trailer. And this was something somebody had out in Texas had bought at an auction. And so they put it on my trailer, and I had no idea if it ran or not. But that was a COD load. And before they would release the car, they said that there were storage fees associated with it. The amount of, I think it was $100 or $150. And so the auction house told me that I can go ahead and pay it and then get the car, and then I can settle up with the person later. I said, no, the buyer or person I'm taking it to, that's their responsibility. I'm not paying for that. So I call them and I explained to him, and he told me, he said, well, if you just pay it, I'll pay you later. I said, no, I'm not paying for it. So he said he didn't know how to do it. And I told him to call the auction place. They'll explain it to him. And he didn't really want to. And he said he wasn't able to do it. I said, okay, then I'm going to go ahead and leave. And so he said, okay, wait a minute. So while I was on the phone with him, he jumped online and went ahead and had it paid for within a couple minutes. So right there, I'm thinking, the guy's already being dishonest, trying to scam me. So they released the vehicle, put it on my trailer, and then I go to the next place, which was a Chevrolet dealer, and I was picking up a new, I guess 2023 Chevy Suburban, and so that I had to wait around for them to find the vehicle, and it was buried somewhere in the back, and they had to go get it. So by the time I got that loaded up, and that was pretty heavy. So I was pretty well weighted down on my trailer. And that was probably the heaviest load that I've put on there by far. And by the time I got everything done, ready, put away, and got back to on my way, I barely made it back home with just a couple minutes to spare. So it was a whole entire 14-hour day to pick up those 3 loads. And my pay for those 3 loads was $2,000. That's what came to me after it was all done. And then I did a 10-hour break at my house in California. Then I drove out to Texas. That was a 2-day drive going out there. I stopped off at my house in Texas. And then the next day I went to deliver out to, it was the Chevy truck dropped off at a dealership in Dallas, and then the other 2 dropped off in Arlington. So I dropped off the Suburban first, and I backtracked, went to Arlington, and then I turned around and headed back to the Texas house. So all total, it took 4 full days to get everything done for $2,000. And the first day was a huge hassle. So and after taking into account of fuel, it wasn't $2,000. And because that was such a heavy load, I burned a lot of fuel on that load. So it was, I didn't lose money, but I just feel like my time was better spent, could have been better spent, just driving straight back out to Indiana empty and getting another one of the high-paying RV loads versus spending 4 days hassling around essentially what was 2 extra days hassling with the reloads to pick up and deliver. And even the car that I'd picked up at the auction house, that was a COD load. And there's 2 different types. There's the loads that are the direct deposit loads where the person you're delivering to has credit or terms with the broker, and they're able to deposit the money to your account, not my account, but they're able to give the money to Horizon within so many days. It might be 3 days, 5 days, 10 days, 20 days, whatever. But they've been vetted to have the credit available to do that. Now the COD loads is where their credit is so bad that a broker won't provide them with payment terms. So when I went to drop that load off, the day before I had called and asked him if he had the money ready. He says, "Oh yeah, I've got the money ready." Okay. So I get there, and I'm dropping off at this auto repair shop. And I said, "Okay, it's going to be, I forget whether it was $600 or $800 or something like that. I can't remember what it was." But he goes and tells me, "Well, I don't really have the cash right now." And I said, "What?" I said, "I called you yesterday and you said you had the money ready." He says, "Yeah, but I really don't have it right now." I said, "Okay, then you don't have a car." He says, "What do you mean?" I said, "No money, no car." I said, "When you get the money, you can let me know." I said, "We'll discuss my fee for storing your car and bringing it back out to you." I said, "It's going to be a whole lot more than what you're paying now." "Oh, well, let me go to the bank and see if I can get the money together." I said, "Okay." I said, "I'm going to give you 20 minutes and then I'm leaving." And so I started a timer, and he went back. He was back within, I think, 12 minutes or something, and he had the cash. I mean, so just I'm not I don't like people trying to scam me. It was just irritating. So I vowed from then I'm not doing any more COD loads, not at all. And when you look on Super Dispatch, just about everything is a COD load. Probably 90% is COD loads. So, and it's just not. I come to find it's just not worth my time. It's very peaceful for me to be driving back empty, back to Indiana, and not being hassling with. I mean, somebody else, they might say, "Oh, well, I have great luck with reloads." Good. I wish I had your luck, but I just don't want to be hassling with stuff. I don't need to hassle with it. I don't need that complication. So I can get great fuel mileage. Driving empty, I can get 14, right around 14 and some change, driving empty, and I can just cruise right along, and I can get back to Indiana for around $500. And all I do is I just roll that cost into the cost of my next load, and I'm very efficient on my fuel. So when I roll that into my back, my return cost with my outgoing cost, I can still stay under. I can still stay into a nice acceptable fuel cost percentage for an outgoing load or an outbound load, and I really like to keep it under 30% of the line haul cost, which I'm usually able to do. So the question is it worth the work? I mean, my time is worth money, and so the quicker I can get back to Indiana and pick up the next load, it's It's just it just makes more sense to me to do it that way. Because the reloads just take up valuable time, and you're not just making much money. I mean, I've talked to other flatbed drivers, and they say, "Oh yeah, we'll pick up maybe one or two, just to cover the cost of fuel going back." And that's all fine. If that works for them, that's great. But I don't want to assume. Oh yeah, this part right here, the wobble wheel got stuck. Yeah, this was a funny. It was so muddy. It's so muddy here that the wobble wheel just sinks right into the ground, and I was having trouble getting the wheel to track straight, so it would go into the metal track, and I had to constantly keep bringing it up and adjusting it. Yeah. But I've talked to other people, and they've said that they take one or two just to cover the cost of fuel. Okay, that's if that works for them, great. But I don't want to assume all that risk of the vehicle getting a damage claim, or maybe there was a scratch that I missed, and all of a sudden I get a damage claim for what, 30 or 40 cents a mile, just to cover the cost of my fuel. Doesn't seem worth it to me. And I had gotten an email not long ago from Super Dispatch. It was one of those blanket emails to everybody, and talking about the rise of false damage claims on cars. And you have to take a lot of pictures of these cars. If it's got a chip in the windshield, you got to note it. I mean, how easy is it to miss a tiny little crack in the windshield? But that's something that they could make a damage claim against you for. A tiny little scratch somewhere, anything. A crack in the taillight or something that you might have missed. You have to go over every little inch of that car and take lots and lots of pictures, or else they can come back and make a damage claim, and they will. If they can somehow take the cost off of them and throw it on to somebody else, that's I just don't want to be bothered with it. I really like hauling the RVs. It's easier. I really like dealing with the dealerships. They're, for the most part, they've been nice and friendly and cordial. So yeah, but it comes down to risk versus reward. So there's such a high risk associated with running for 30, 40 cents a mile, so, and if I load up, 3 at 40 cents a mile, that's $1.20 a mile. And let's say the average car is, let's say, 4,000 pounds. That's 12,000 pounds for 3 cars. That's heavier than any of the RVs that I would ever put on that flatbed trailer. Because these ones that picture that we're loading up, I think these are 3,900 pounds. I think they're like 3,900 pounds a piece. So, and if you put some trucks in the mix, you put maybe a car and 2 diesel trucks on there. Well, a diesel truck, I mean, what's a Ford F-250 weigh? 7,000 pounds? Put 2 of those on there, that could be 14,000 plus a car that's another 4, that's 18,000. That's a lot. And the heavier the load, the more fuel I'm burning, and the less of a profit I have at $1.20. $1.20 just to go back. I don't know. So I just don't want to run for the cost of fuel, because I have other costs to think about. I have insurance. I don't have a payment. I don't have a payment on the truck or the trailer. But I have insurance. I have maintenance. You know, the heavier the load that you pull, the more strain you're putting on the vehicle. The last time I just had the rear differential fluid changed. They told me that it looked burned. So I gotta start, changing it more often. Changing it at maybe 20 or 30,000 miles versus 50,000. So if I haven't covered anything on this, anybody has any additional questions on the reloads, I'd be happy to answer them. Just put them in the comments or send me an email. And this piece, I think, turned out pretty well. I really like this chest-mounted GoPro camera. I think it really works out well. I think I'm going to start using this more often. I'd really like to be able to use this at a delivery, but yeah, that's a really good view of how it comes up there. But I just don't want to be videoing at a dealership if they don't want me videoing and stuff. So I think the next time I'll ask them. One of the next dealer I go to, I'll ask them if it's okay if I do a video on the unloading and stuff. So but I try to be respectful of the dealers. They don't want anything of their stuff videoed. That's a tight fit going up there. So anyway, if anybody has any other questions about reloads, I hope I've answered as much as I possibly can. But if anybody has any other questions about reloads, please ask. Please do. I really like answering comments. Like I said before, I don't know everything. I don't profess to know everything. This piece is where I'm using the tow dolly to bring them up. I think the tow dolly works out really well versus picking up the ramps and then moving the truck backwards. So it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to move these. I think in the summertime when there's not as much mud, I think they'll be easier to move. But we'll see. This one was hard to get moving. Once I started pulling, my son had to get behind and start pushing. Once it once it got moving, it went pretty well. Okay, so yeah, like I said, that's just my personal opinion on reloads. Other people might have differing opinion, which is fine. To me, it just, the numbers for me don't work. They don't work unless there's that one really nice unicorn load. Like I took that one Ford truck from here, right. I mean, it was at the dealership right in the same town where I have my house in Texas, and so I picked up right from there. I mean, it's the dealership is not even 2 miles away from the house, and then it was along the way. I went to, I think, Springfield, Illinois. I think it was Springfield, Illinois, which was right along the way going up to Indiana. And that was, I think it was 76 cents a mile. Okay, fine. It went from one dealer to another dealer. Great, no problem. But that was one of those like unicorn loads that you just don't find. It was easy to pick up, easy to drop off, no problems. So that stuff like that I would take. And it wasn't a COD load. That was a direct pay load. So, all right. Any questions or comments? Please leave them down below or send me an email. All right. I'll just put some music in here for the rest of the video. All right. Have a great day.